Hello, my name is Cedric. I'm the head of the Software Technology Lab at Avnet Embedded. Welcome to this new embedded software session. Today's episode will be about starting the development of our first project with SimpleSwitch. For this session, we will develop a very simple project in C. At this point, you should have everything set up to start working on your project with SimpleSwitch. So now it's time to start coding, right? We will use VS Code, but of course everything we do in VS Code can be done as well from the command line. It is all documented. Which means that if you are keen on using a different IDE, you can automate all the compilation, deployment processes for your environment like what we did in VS Code. So let's start VS Code. The first step consists in installing SimpleSwitch build tools plugin for VS Code. So we just go to the extension tab here, and then we look for SimpleSwitch. So we have it here, and we install it. So now if you hit F1, you can see like a bunch of new SimpleSwitch commands. So we have one for compile, deploy, package, log files, and a bunch of stuff more. And the idea basically behind it is that we have only very little that you can configure as part of the extension itself. Let me show you that in the settings. Go there, settings, SimpleSwitch, here we are. And we find that we can configure the IP address. If we want to have the logs and the pack, and if we want, we can configure as well the logs and the package size factor. And the rest is part of the SDK. Okay, so now it's time to initialize our first project and use one of the templates provided with the SDK. So first off, it will ask you a bunch of questions. First, we can select the location of the SDK, so it's what we installed, I think 2 sessions ago. And we need to wait while it's sourcing the SDK in our VS Code environment. Now it asks you a bunch of more questions. For instance, what's the application call? How's the container call? You might wonder why 2 names. Well, since we package your application in a container, which is something you could compare as an archive, that includes your application and all the dependencies, it makes just sense to have 2 different names, one for the container and one for the application. Of course, it's up to you if you want to give both the same names. Okay, then we get to what kind of template we want to use today. So we are going to use the C. If we want a debug build, so right now we just set it up to no. In addition, if we want to add optional arguments for the command line, after doing this configuration, we can check the workspace settings. You can find it in this file called simple-switch.json. And it basically defines, like, for this particular project, what we need to configure. So we are, again, very, very flexible. Then we can check the different startup commands in the launch.json. So this one defines like the debug configuration for VS Code ID. So now we can finally start to compile. So F1, and as you can see, compile was successful. So we can you can also see the output of the task, and that there is a new tab called SimpleSwitch where you need to go to actually see that output. So each and every time we run you can actually see the current output. And there is if there is an error, let me show you that. So I'm gonna modify the code a tiny bit. We have an error. We recompile, and it switches automatically and shows you the new output. Okay, so let's fix this bug, right? Okay, that was an easy one. So now let's run again compile, and everything is fine. Now we can run the package, and it creates this build folder. So you can see now on the left, as you can see here, with the root FS and everything beyond, so your application and the dependencies. and it was successful. So now it's time to deploy this one. So F1 again, and we deploy. So this one is going to take a little while, but it's transferring the files to the device. We are done. We can check on the device that the container is started. So let's just connect over SSH in the terminal here in VS Code. And we use a SimpleSwitch helper status for that. And here it is. We can also show the log files of our application directly in VS Code. So press F1 and it's basically opening a shell session and just follows the logs. But wait, where is my debug message in this log? That's a good question. So let's debug our code. So now we need to enable the debug session. Now we need to repackage. So just do that because we change the startup command and we redeploy. And as you can see here on the fly, that in the logs, it's now listening for a GDB connection. Now we can just hit H5 and it switches automatically and starts. And let me show you, for instance here, we step out and still no message, we did not change anything, so far so good. Yes, because in this template, the standard out writing is ignored. So let me quickly change that into an fprint and that the output goes to the standard error. Okay. So that's done. Now we're going to recompile and we repackage and redeploy. Now we should be able to hit F5 again. Do it. And we can see hello world in the logs. Cool, huh? And we can pause and we wait for a couple of seconds. Nothing will happen. We're stuck at this breakpoint. That's good. But once I hit it again and we wait for 5 seconds, then we're back on the breakpoint. So you see everything is working smoothly. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed that session. Thanks for watching and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on LinkedIn so you don't miss out on any of our upcoming episodes. Have a nice day and see you next week.